Hey everybody, and welcome to my latest video on San Diego Comic-Con this year. And I'm in denial. I'm in fall already. I hate summer. So we're getting really warm temperatures where I live, and I'm already done with it, and the allergies are killing me. So I've gone full Halloween fall mode today. I wanted to talk about this because it's a really interesting uh, layout that we are seeing for San Diego this year. Because as we know, most of the major studios have pulled out of San Diego Comic-Con because of the strike that is coming up for SAG. Actors won't be doing any sort of work in relation to movies until this is resolved. The Writers Guild is still at play here. The only ones that have taken a deal were the Directors Guild at this point. So San Diego Comic-Con is going to look really different. I've already spoken about this previously when it was announced that most of the studios were pulling out, if not all of them at this point. So I wanted to show you because they have released the map for the floor plan, and I wanted to show you the last couple of years of the show, 2018, 2019, when it was majorly packed, and then give you a comparison to what it's going to look like this year. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up, and pardon me while I pull this up here. So this is currently the 2018 plan. Now you can see here, and hopefully this is working. You will see that Lucasfilm is here. We've got Square Enix, ABC, AMC, 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers with their water tower, always in that area. Marvel, all of the major players are right here. DC, Sideshow always had a big chunk of real estate. Netflix is over here, the Cartoon Network, all of these. And over here, you've even got Ubisoft, Blizzard, and Nintendo. So this was in 2018. This is what 2018 looked like. At its, this is kind of like peak Comic-Con at this point, when you had these giant areas in the middle, which is the prime real estate. I'm surprised I don't see on here, but I could be missing it. Go a little bit bigger. But at one point, Sci-Fi Channel had this horrendous inflatable thing that they'd put over here, and I think that ended just prior to this this year. So this is 2018. So then we're going to go back to 2019, which is one of the last great Comic-Con basically San Diego had. So this is the 2019 map. As you can see, it's not much different other than DC went over with Warner Brothers because, of course, they did. They're carrying a lot of their content. ABC was still here. You had, again, the giant, a little bit less here. ABC was there. FX had their booth. And then, again, you had Sideshow. So you can see there was a little bit less happening in terms of studios at this point. Again, Nintendo was over here. Sideshow, again, like I said, I can't stress enough how big Sideshow was for San Diego because they took up a lot of real estate with their displays. They would always have like a shindig of some sort of party at the event as well. So as you see, 2019 kind of seeing a little bit of a change. Now, let's take a look at this year's, which was just released a couple of days ago. And this is the final bit. So here we are. And as you can see, there is a lot missing. And we knew there would be. There's no studios here. None. Warner Brothers is gone. FX, nothing there. And if we zoom in, we can move around here and look. Now, as you see, Doctor Who is here. It's a big deal for them. We do have a little, like there is a little bit of a booth area for ABC, Hulu, FX, and Disney. but that's very small in comparison to what you've seen previously. ABC had their own booth. DC has moved over here, which is a really big change. They used to be over here in the area with all of the major comic carriers. So no Warner Brothers to be with them. They're over in the far corner, just a little away from Funko. Funko is really just the biggest group, I think, right now at San Diego. They're not missing out on anything. They still have like this massive area in the corner where they've always been. So if you're going, you know where Funko's at, typically next to Artist Alley. That's where you want to go for your Funko if you're getting any of their featured stuff. But if you look at this is very different. And just the other thing that I noticed as I was going over the layout was over here. And that is over in the video game area, there's no Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't have a presence this year at San Diego Comic-Con, which is kind of shocking because they have always sort of been there. Now, again, you have all of these booths. These are going to be your regular vendors. These are going to be your regular comic book vendor types that are going to be there. Hi, Zennie. And so if you look around, this is just the typical layout for that side of San Diego, where you'll see your regular vendor types, your comic book retailers who can afford to go. And then as you come into the middle, you start getting the bigger booths, which is, like I said, Lego, Mattel, those guys are going to be there. Star Wars, it's interesting. It doesn't say Lucasfilm. It just says Star Wars. So they're going all in on that. Dark Horse always is there, IDW. So you still, really what you're looking at here is San Diego Comic-Con is coming back to the comics, which is kind of nice. I don't know how this is going to affect the crowds, because typically on Fridays, Saturdays, even Thursdays, Sundays even, not so much now since Sunday was owned by Supernatural and Doctor Who. Sundays was always when Supernatural would just take over. But at this point, there's no as far as I know, group signings happening like you would normally have with your actors at this show. So that's not going down. So it definitely looks a lot smaller. As Zennie is saying, this looks way smaller. And it's mainly because those giant booths aren't there that take up the space. So that's probably going to really help crowd control and not have panic attacks like I did one year. That was really fun. I went on a Saturday into the convention floor like an idiot, and never will do that again. So again, it looks more like Comic-Con is going back to comics. And I know a lot of people are really, really happy about that. The thing for me is, as a reporter and a entertainment reporter, and I cover films, I cover TV shows. This kind of sucks for us in a way, because a lot of ways, because it was always a really easy way to get content, and this was a way for studios to just get all of their people in one place and do the press rounds and do to show off their stuff, to give previews. Now, again, as far as I know, Disney's pulled out completely. So Marvel's not going to have Hall H. I don't know what they're going to do with Hall H. I do know at one point during the weekend, Kevin Smith is going to have his show in there, or his talk. But the typical Marvel taking over Saturday and just ruling over the entire show isn't going to happen. Which is, again, one of those things. It was sort of like a battle royal and a battle of honor to get into Hall H. And so this year that isn't going to happen. Zennie is asking if the actors strike is going to impact comics. It shouldn't. The actors strike is basically just affecting the film promotion type of stuff. Once that starts, they're not promoting films. So I've actually ran into this already, where I had to surprise cover and do interviews for a couple of things. One was The Last Voyage of the Demeter. They did their press last month for a movie that doesn't come out until August. Great movie, by the way. I shouldn't say that. I'm still under embargo. It's a good movie. But with that, and then other films that are set to come out in the fall or towards the end of summer, like in the August, September timeframe, they're all doing their promotion and their press interviews in within the next couple of weeks, because they want to get that in the bag, so they have it to release for the movie when it comes out. So comics aren't going to be affected from that, because first of all, they're comics. They're not the one thing that may help the comics actually is this, because you have a lot of actors who are writing comics and are giving their names and likenesses to comics. Oscar Isaac's doing it. Keanu Reeves did it very successfully. Speaking of Last Voyage of the Demeter, David Dasmalchian, who's in that, is actually got a great comic series he does called Count Crowley, amateur vampire or amateur monster hunter. Sorry, I got that wrong. But you know, they're taking the opportunity to go do that. That wouldn't affect this at all because it's not part of their acting gig, so it doesn't go against SAG rules. So that wouldn't affect it. You're not typically going to have actors, and Zennie asked if, you know, about comics that were based on films. There aren't that many. Marvel's stuff existed before the MCU. So that's not going to affect Marvel at all. So in terms of the Marvel writers and artists, they're going to be at Comic-Con. But you're not going to have any actors doing press for comics based on films, and typically they don't. Like right now, The Mandalorian is, I think they've gotten to the second season. They're literally making comic books based on the episodes of the Mandalorian TV show. And I don't think I've seen Pedro Pascal doing any sort of publicity for those comic books. So it's right now, I think that those properties are safe. So I'm going to stop sharing that and come back here. So basically that's what's going on with San Diego Comic-Con at this point. So Zennie has said it's true. The press releases are few and far between right now. Now there is the thing with Doctor Who. I'm not certain if the new cast is in SAG. SAG is basically an American or United States area, but you have actors who want to work here that are part of it. Some actors who are in, like, say, Canada don't bother joining SAG because they have their own thing in that country. So it's going to be interesting to see who this totally affects, but in terms of how the entertainment industry is being represented at San Diego, it's very small this year. As you could see again, and I'll re-show this, there are literally no big studios really here. The biggest thing in terms of content, where'd you go? It's so small, I can't find it. Oh, over here is ABC, Hulu, and FX with Disney Plus. And they have this area right here, and that's it. Nickelodeon, it's always going to have a big, you know, this is the other thing is cartoons. They've already gotten some, they're always going to be a big part of this. Nickelodeon always has a big booth. they typically don't have a lot of signings as far as I remember at that thing. Strange New Worlds has its own booth because Paramount Plus is hurting, if you haven't heard about that. So they are trying to really push Star Trek because their content, they're hurting when it comes to the streaming wars because their content is pretty much carried by a lot of other people. So the only thing they have going on is Star Trek. And with Picard over, I guess Discovery's still going. I'm not certain. But Strange New Worlds is a really great show. But because that's really the only thing you would buy or get Paramount Plus to actually have, is because you would want to see Strange New Worlds. But if they're going to release it on disc, physical media, then you probably just want to wait for that. But it is a really good show, and I hope people support it because it actually is Star Trek, unlike some other shows. And so, again, it's an interesting thing to see because it's kind of been building to this. San Diego Comic-Con has been one of the greatest things I've ever experienced in my life. It's just amazing. It's a magical world where 300,000 geeks can come together and celebrate the stuff they love. It's packed full of people, but you don't feel scared or threatened or anything like that. But the problem is it's gotten to the point that it can't fit in San Diego anymore, and it's very expensive to do. And it just kind of hurt itself. It hasn't died. I think there's still hope for Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con can still come out of this. But the problem is they've, in the interim and during this time, they've managed to alienate all of the major comic book sellers. They've priced themselves out of being able to bring these people in. Like I said, Mile High Comics left, and that was a big blow because they would take up an entire back wall on the right-hand side of the exhibit floor. They priced them out. And so, yes, mine as well. And I haven't been there in so long because of the pandemic. But you've got that problem. And now with this, where the major studios aren't buying up that real estate, Comic-Con's in trouble with that because that floor, I can't remember the price, but it's ridiculous how much it costs, especially the prime in the middle. That's because that's where the major, crowds come in and all of that. So I'm not sure how it's going to play out this year in terms of what they're going to do. If it's going to make it, any kind of profit from this, because that real estate in San Diego that they rent out, they take over the entire downtown. And the Gaslight District is a lot. With fans, still kind of coming out of the pandemic, I know we all want to get together and celebrate our stuff. But again, this isn't a very expensive place. Like, I always use the cookie example. The cookie example is these Mrs. Fields cookies that when you're stuck in that area for so long, you are starving and you don't want to leave the convention hall because then you have to trudge through the crowds to get to anywhere to eat. And typically those places to eat are very expensive. So Comic-Con will put in the cost of, they put these hot dogs and snack foods that are typically like the cheapest food you can get, and these Mrs. Field cookies. Mrs. Field cookies are about that big. that big maybe. Those are, I believe, the last time I was there, $5 for a cookie that big. $5 right there. And so it's, well, and Zennie is quoting the badge prices. Now, that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the real estate to rent in there, and just the cost of food, travel, parking. Parking is another thing that is ridiculous. And they actually have the hotel apocalypse, but then they have the parking apocalypse too, because you have to pay to park and you have to get your dibs in on your parking spot if you're bringing a car. I've never brought a car to Comic-Con. I would never dare. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I can almost guarantee you the crowds are going to be decent. They always are. People love this show. People will kill to go to this show. But this year's going to be a major change, and I hope people are prepared for that in terms of what content's going to be there. And I know a lot of people in the California area. These are celebrity fans. They are creators, actors, will go to Comic-Con specifically as a fan and walk around. I have no doubt that's still going to happen. And that's fantastic. I've ran into people there that I never thought in a million years I'd run into. It was just really neat. But again, the changes here and the SAG strike are going to, the major pulls from the studios, that's going to change the content. That's going to change the experience. So I'm curious how this is going to play out and how this will affect the next Comic-Con in San Diego, how it will go, because due to like virtual conventions and things like that, this show has changed completely. DC did their own thing during the pandemic, and it shows that when it comes to a major event like this, where it costs so much to do it, to be a part of it, you got to fly in your talent, you got to take care of them, you got to do hotels and all of this, plus pay the event to allow it to be there. That is right now, with the way studios are hurting and trying to scramble to find their way. This is what happens. I think there would have probably been less of a presence anyway with all of that happening, because of everything that's gone on with studios and the box office and all of that are major hurting right now. And the world's changed a lot thanks to COVID. And I'm surprised. Again, I was always a fan of, and Zennie says 4 days are $1,645 for fans. I think it's more than that, especially if you buy stuff. You're feeding yourself for 4 days, 5 if you go to, I think, preview night, transportation, ticket, all of that. It's not cheap. San Diego is very expensive to fly into for some reason too, which is interesting. And I get that, the politicians love San Diego Comic-Con because it brings in money to San Diego. But at some point, you have to go, okay, we've outgrown this area. We've been hearing for years that they were going to expand the convention center, and they've never done it, or it's never been completed. And trust me when I say that when you go into that convention floor on a Saturday just to try and walk around or do anything, it's hell. It is so packed. Oh, by the way, yeah, I was going to say that seems pretty cheap. It is complete and absolute hell to try and walk around, to do anything. There are so many people crammed in there. Again, this year's probably going to be different than that. But if you've never experienced it, I can't really do justice. It took me 30 minutes to cross a sidewalk. 30 minutes to go across a sidewalk, not a walkway, not a intersection, a sidewalk, because of the amount of people that were there. So again, it's an endurance test to go. It is magical when it works. But with everything that's happened and the changes here, I think you're going to see a definite difference in what the convention is and how it is going to feel. I'm sure they'll still have all of the stuff on the outside. Comedy Central used to do an entire South Park town. I don't know if they're even going to have that this year. Because like I said, the animation side is still strong. Nickelodeon, they still have their stuff there, so they typically have outside things too for kids. I don't know if they're even taking over the baseball stadium that's across the street this year. I don't know. It could. Again, all of that was from studios, so I'm curious to see how that affects the outlaying stuff as well. I honestly, Zennie and I disagree on this. San Diego Comic-Con is a tonic that must remain. I think Comic-Con needs to move to Las Vegas, and I will keep saying that because I hate how it's just so difficult to get around and move and do anything in the expense of San Diego at this point. Because, I mean, again, this may change all of that. I don't know. But Las Vegas, I always say that because it's made for this kind of thing. It's cheaper to get to. You can have three or four hotels in conjunction with this, where you have your comics in one, film, TV in one, and animation in another. However you want to lay it out, in conjunction with each other. You have your buses going to each location, and just do it that way, where you have more room to move. It's easier for people to afford it. And Vegas is Vegas, it's become its own thing. Now with their resort fees, it's a little more expensive, but I can almost assure you it would be cheaper than doing it in San Diego. And you would have more room to move and breathe and just, be. It would just be easier. And the flights are way cheaper. So anyway, I am going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the Zennie62 network. Leave a comment below if you want more content like this about conventions, entertainment. I'm trying to do more, and definitely, stay safe. Enjoy the summer. I hate the summer, but definitely enjoy it. And happy 4th of July, because that's what today is. So anyway, guys, thank you again, and look forward to talking to you soon.